Hi, this is Mystery Box, and today I'm going to talk about the resurrection. Definitely the resurrection is the heart of Christianity, but is it believable? And that's what I'm going to look at today. I'm basically going to explain why I don't think it is believable. I hope even if you disagree with me that you'll see that my perspective is at least fair and reasonable. Okay, so what's the evidence? The evidence is basically the Bible, specifically the Gospels. We've got several writings that claim many extraordinary events happened, including Jesus rising from the dead. Is this evidence sufficient? Should we actually believe this evidence? Let's examine it. Let's suppose several strangers came up to you and claimed that they saw a friend of theirs do something unusual. They all claim to witness the event. They have a consistent story. They seem sincere. Do you believe them? Well, doesn't it matter what they say their friend did? If their friend just did charity work, then you probably believe them. You've got several witnesses saying that a guy did something that's not really that unusual, so you don't need more than that. You believe them. What if they say that their friend cut a woman in half and then restored her? Again, you'd probably believe that. You know that magicians do that all the time. It's not that unusual. You know that it's an illusion. So you probably believe it. But what if they say that it wasn't a trick, that this person actually did cut this woman in half, and not only that, died, and several days later rose from the dead and maybe flew around unaided like a bird? Now you've got a little bit of a problem. These claims are now incredible, contrary to physical facts and the laws of nature. If you're like most people, you don't believe that without further evidence. It's not enough to just have somebody say that they saw this, because there's simpler, more likely explanations, such as the person's lying to you or the person was tricked somehow. There's just any number of more reasonable explanations than a supernatural claim on its face. This is really the best case as far as the Gospels go. Even if we assume clear testimony of sincere eyewitnesses telling a consistent story, it's just not enough to believe a supernatural claim over a simpler, natural explanation. So I could stop right here, and I think I'd have a good enough case why the resurrection story shouldn't be believed. But really, the Gospels aren't even comparable to that best case. A lot of Christians don't know it, but there are a lot of issues that make the Gospels less credible. First off, the Gospels aren't live witnesses. They're old stories that are written down. We don't have the original writings. We don't even have copies of the original writings. We've got copies that are quite old, been through a lot of generations. They've got a lot of discrepancies between them. I've read some sources that say the number of differences between the different copies are more than the actual words in the New Testament itself. The Gospels, in general, are anonymous. They don't have the names of the person that wrote them in them. And the fact is, nobody knows who wrote them. The names that are on them were added many years later by the early church. Those names are not actually on those books originally. So we don't have the original writings. The claims are anonymous. They were written years, decades after the supposed events they described happened. Much of it couldn't be eyewitness testimony. They described things like Jesus' birth and things that happened at the tomb that the writer, the supposed writer, wasn't around to witness. So there's a lot of things in them that couldn't be eyewitness testimony, but it was written like it was. Finally, they have inconsistencies on their face. If you read the different Gospels, they actually conflict. Apologists talk about all these different things I've just went over, and they give explanations that can get fairly complex and convoluted to try to explain them. But I think that little summary I gave is fair and accurate. So even if there were sincere people standing in front of you telling you a story that was supernatural, it wouldn't really be rational to believe it, because there's more likely explanations. Believing that sort of thing on its face is just not the most reasonable thing to do. But we don't even have that. What we have are anonymous writings that are inconsistent, written decades after the supposed events, describing extraordinary things that the writers often weren't around to witness, with nothing more as evidence. For me, it's just not enough. It's not enough evidence to believe that these supernatural events actually happened. There's more likely, simple, natural explanations. So, thanks.